Peterson was a singular figure, no question, a man with singular gifts. Not an original thinker necessarily. A lot of people have noted how he really synthesizes and blends together a lot of other thinkers, but he had a unique ability to convey that to people today, especially young people. And it hit differently, the message to take religion seriously, take the Bible seriously. It hit differently coming from an outsider like Peterson. If your pastor or your mother says you should read the Bible, they're supposed to say that, right? That's expected. But for somebody like Peterson, who had gravitas, authority, a degree, for him to say, take this seriously, it made people sit up and notice. And he delivered that message passionately, earnestly, with a lot of care for his audience. And he made them feel like he was inviting them on a grand adventure, on their own personal hero's journey, you could say. And so that resonated really strongly with people who kind of desperately needed that sort of voice in their lives.
I agree with you that he is essentially a very compassionate man. You can't spend any time with him without realising he's very sincere in his concern for others. And even via the medium, so, when you look at somebody on a television screen, it's really an electronic take on them, so to speak. But even via that medium, I think it comes through. And I think that might be part of why he touches people, do you think?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I mean, his gifts don't really lie in writing. If you read a book of his and you compare it with him giving a lecture, the lecture is by far more compelling. So, the fact that we live in a new media age, an age of YouTube, right, where he could just put the lectures out there, they would gain millions and millions of views, definitely made him what he is. I don't think he could have made the splash that he did in a different media age.
I mention it deliberately for a number of reasons, not least of all because I think it's true and he deserves credit because he does care. But it's also because to those who would want to criticise or nitpick or disparage Jordan Peterson, I've often thought to myself, and I've said to a couple of them as a matter of fact, when you can demonstrate you care as much for your fellow men and women as Jordan Peterson does, perhaps you'll be in a position where I could take you a bit more seriously when you want to have a go at him.
Yeah, I agree with that. And reading around the different reviews of his latest book, I have obviously my own criticisms of his work in general and the latest book in particular. But a lot of people are, like you say, they're kind of concerned to nitpick, and there's a kind of a smug tone that attends that kind of thing, or that they'll come at it from a politically leftist angle, and they'll try to claim he's, I don't know, a misogynist or whatever. And it's like you're saying, it's very cynical. And I think one of Peterson's great strengths is his complete lack of cynicism. He's making earnestness great again. And that's something that's really needed, I think, in an age when young people are inclined to be cynical. Young people are inclined to make everything a joke, right? And here comes this guy to remind everybody that life is not a joke, man. Life is serious. And you're going to have to learn how to face it and face what life brings you with integrity and with responsibility.
My first serious encounter with him, watching him with a group of people, was in Australia. And he walked on to the stage, 1,000 people. I was asked to MC the night. And I looked out across the audience and realised a staggering proportion of them were young men. He got a standing ovation before he'd said a word. And I remember thinking, as a former politician, I've never seen a serving politician get this sort of welcome. And online, it's a different world. They knew who he was. And you're right. He addressed those people with great respect. And I think those young men were recognising that they had recognised life's serious because they felt under attack. And he nailed it. He said the culture wants to attack you, as young men in particular, as being toxic simply because you're a young man.
Yeah, that's true. And you can tell in the interview that you did with him, he was especially moved thinking about the plight of young men these days and how they're being beaten down with these messages about the toxicity of their natural masculinity. And so you can tell that he's deeply, deeply concerned about that and deeply worried to help them reclaim the goodness of manhood and to figure out their masculine identities and how that can be courageous, it can be heroic, and it can be beautiful if harnessed correctly. And we really lack voices emphasizing that now.